Hi, my name's Elliot Johnson,
And I'm Ashley Parks.
and our American government research project was on global warming and how it affects the salmon population in the Pacific Northwest. Our introduction consists of us finding and seeing results of the global warming on how it affects the salmon. We've noticed when we visited the waterfront that there's a decrease in salmon population, and data found by scientists also backs up this point.
And we found that with warmer climates, that will increase the water temperatures, which decreases the flow during spawning migrations in salmon, which increases the pre-spawning mortality and reduces egg deposition, causing premature fry emergence and increased fry to smolt mortality. Also, with increased temperature in the climate, it will also increase the severity and frequency of winter floods, which causes also egg to fry survival rates. It will reduce them. And as we can see, rising temperatures in the water do decrease the salmon population, which if it does get too low, it can severely impact the ecosystem.
There have been many improvements that have been made over the last 10, 20 years. The ones that we figured that are most effective is restoring estuaries and rivers by removing harmful chemicals and waste that have been left over from fossil fuels. Not always just specifically fossil fuels, but at least in our case in Bellingham, we have the Georgia Pacific plant that has spewed lots of nuclear waste into Bellingham Bay, which has, in turn, which is where the beginning of an estuary is, which is in turn, we've noticed a decrease in salmon population. Another big thing is obviously developing renewable energy. This has been a huge thing in the presidential campaigns. Both campaigns did have different ideas on how we should regulate renewable energy. But we've noticed that if you do decrease the amount of fossil fuels and start ramping up renewable energy, will not only help the atmosphere but the ecosystem, because salmons, like we said before, rely on cold water temperatures, and with them rising, it fluctuates their migration and their spawning. Also, protecting national parks. So many big rivers do flow through national parks. So if the national parks are protected, in turn, the salmon shall also be protected.
When it comes to cost, it can be difficult to find an exact cost for this issue just because it's so big and it's all over the world. But overall, when we switch over from fossil fuels to low carbon sources of energy, it should cost around $44 trillion between now and 2050. And that's just because as more carbon enters the atmosphere, there's going to be a more urgency to find greener solutions. And the estimated statewide cost of salmon recovery at the regional level for 2010 to 2019 is estimated at 5.5 billion, with 4.7 billion in capital costs and nearly 800 million in non-capital costs. And it's just important to note that these costs are related to hatchery and harvest improvements that are not captured in these cost estimates, but these are also important for salmon recovery nonetheless.
Feasibility. So, theoretically, if we all work together, this problem should not last, but there's obviously a lot of conflict of interest from major fossil fuel companies such as Exxon and Mobil. So yeah, if we do cut down on fossil fuels, that will be a major reason why salmon population could rise. There's also lots of improvements in renewable energy. We have solar panels and wind turbines. They're becoming ever more popular. You'll see them all over the place. Germany is a country that is a huge innovator in this space and has helped the United States become a lot better over the last few years. We also need support from the government. We would like to reach out to Mayor Linville, the mayor of Bellingham. She has been proven over and over to be an activist for salmon population, and she's noticed, along with other scientists, that there has been a decrease in the salmon population. And she realizes that that's a huge impact on the economy, because for one, Bellingham does export lots of salmon, and also the whole ecosystem, because so many animals rely on salmon as a food source.
And when it comes to evidence of public support, Whatcom County has obviously pro salmon. We've already have a committee dedicated to the protection of salmon, and they've worked together with the mayor, and it's already worked to implement projects already, and they're constantly coming up with new ways to preserve salmon in our county, at least. Also, there's constantly events going around in Bellingham. For example, this next week, there's an event at the Bellingham Unitarian Fellowship called Salmon is Life, and it's a benefit dinner, and it has speakers from local tribes and scientists from around Whatcom County, and they're there to discuss the protection of salmon in water and its effects on its ecosystems and why we need to implement new ways to protect salmon and keep water clean and healthy for everybody. And the Port of Bellingham has also been making efforts to recover salmon by working in collaboration with Bellingham Bay's Pilots Multi-Agency Task Force, and they've identified the highest priority habitat restoration areas in Bellingham Bay. So there's clearly a lot of public support in Bellingham to help protect the salmon.
So this is our bibliography page. We hope that you enjoyed our presentation.